Hi, the purpose of this clinic is to introduce to students and players a new way of practicing and maybe to teachers a fun way of bringing rudiments into everyday playing. And of course for everybody, this is a way of making rudiments come alive with a simple but involving practice technique. I call it the numbers system, and it's very simple. We take a bar of 16th notes, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E, and we subdivide them into smaller groups. Now, to make it entertaining, I usually ask the audience to supply me with the subgroup. So I'm asking for numbers less than 7. And let's say we get quite commonly we get a 4, we'll get a 3, so I might get 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I get a 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Then maybe somebody chucks in a 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which leaves us with 4 left over, which I might suggest we break into 3 and 1, or even if I ask the audience, it's quite likely that somebody will suggest we break it into 3 and 1, maybe 2 and 2, but we'll do 3 and 1. So we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1. Now if I loop it round, I'll get the audience to clap in time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, And we're getting a rhythm, and that's going to be the basis for our practice. Now, I usually do this on a practice pad at the front of the stage. So for the next bit, I'm going to walk to the drum kit and introduce our new rhythm to the kit using 3 basic templates, which is this: accents on snare, accents on toms, accents on cymbals. These 3 templates get used again and again and again. So if I now play with the accents on the snare, we have now accents on toms. If I start here, I've got 1, 2, 3. The toms the same all the time, so that the pattern is starting to literally sing back. Boom, 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 boom. So that's the pattern I'm expecting to hear every time I hit a drum. Then we're going to move the accents up to the cymbals, and this means we add the bass drum. So I get. I'm always saying at this point there's 2 ways of doing this: the easy way, which is what I've just demonstrated, or the slightly more challenging way, which is to keep time with the left foot hi-hat. And I'm often surprised at how many drummers have neglected this part of their practicing. So we're going 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's setting the tone for the whole thing. Now, going back to the practice pad, I'm now saying we're going to apply another technique to our rhythm, which is to roll between the accents. So, demonstrating, for example, groups of 3. If I play groups of 3, so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. What I'm going to do is I'm going to double up the taps, but keep the accents as single strokes. So my groups of 3 will become 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. They will become which most people will recognize as 5-stroke rolls. My point being that we didn't set out to play 5-stroke rolls, we set out to double up the taps and roll between accents. Now, if I apply that to my numbers, 4, 3, 5, 3, 1, the 4, I get 1, 2, 3, 4, and into the 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So the 4 has become a 7-stroke roll. If you like, there's the 7-stroke roll. Now, I'm into the 3. There's my 5-stroke roll. And that was a 5. That was my 5 subdivision. 1, 4, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. So the 9 has become an 11. The 5 has become a 9-stroke roll. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. There's the 9-stroke roll. And that leads us into the other 3. So it's another 5-stroke roll. Except that we're back to the beginning. So in fact, the 3 and the 1 at the end creates a 6-stroke roll. So starting with the accent, then I get a 5, so I get a 7, a 5, a 9, and a 6-stroke roll. Now, the best way to illustrate this, of course, is to play the single stroke sticking and then apply the technique of doubling up. So I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry. So those rudiments are leaping out now, and again, I always point out that we didn't set out to play those rudiments. We set out to roll around a rhythmic figure. So applying again templates: 1, 2, 3, snare, tom, cymbals. So now the rudiments are starting to come alive on the drum set. Now we can, at this point, the third step is to create a groove. Now I can do this by playing my 16th notes on the hi-hat. And applying the bass drum to the accents, which is effectively the same as this. Okay, so I'm going. And I need a backbeat to create a groove. And the groove isn't a groove without a backbeat. So I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So if I combine the two things, the bass drum accents with the backbeat, I should get. If you want, you can leave the bass drum out where the bass drum coincides with the snare. But of course you don't have to do that. I can then apply some different hi-hat or ride cymbal rhythms to that. So I could go to straight 8th notes. Or I could anything, all kinds of anything you can think of that you could do with a groove, you could try this with. So I could demonstrate a couple of those, but then we are talking about using the groove and the fill to continue the phrase over. So if I'm playing so I'm starting to sing the phrase as I'm grooving and as I'm filling in between. So I'm getting a lot of practice out of this. Then the fourth stage, and most interesting probably, is what I call alternative sticking. So the theory I'm putting forward is that for every accented sticking pattern that you can have hand-to-hand sticking, or some kind of alternative sticking. And the alternative sticking is always based on using a diddle. So again, for example, if I take groups of 3, so I'm accenting groups of 3, this is the hand-to-hand sticking. The alternative sticking would be like so. So you're always getting the accented hand up in the air. Or of course it could be. Now the advantage here is obvious. If I go to the drum set, if I'm playing accented cymbals, I can only get so fast. If I play the alternative sticking, I can get up to those kind of speeds with a lot of ease. But also it changes the way we access the drum set. So if I want to play continual accents on the floor tom in groups of 3, I would have to go with hand-to-hand sticking. But with the alternative sticking, it's very, very easy. So I've changed the way I access the kit. I'd also use the example of the groups of 4. If I play groups of 4 in hand-to-hand sticking, there's only so fast I can go and only so much I can access. But if I change the sticking to a paradiddle, we're still hearing groups of 4, but it's a much easier sticking to play because I'm getting the accented hand up earlier. Now, if I apply this to the drum set, say I'm going starting to work very hard to get those notes out. By using a paradiddle, of course, you're hearing exactly the same thing, but I'm getting the accented hand up earlier. The object of the exercise being to show that it's not so much how fast I can get, it's that it's so much easier to do. So I'm at speeds that I would find almost impossible to do with single strokes, and yet it's actually quite easy. So this is the concept of alternative sticking. Now, one of the everything I've spoken up so far will be backed up by a very, very simple handout, but this bit is particularly important. There are the rules of alternative sticking are 3s become right, left, left, or left, right, right. 4s become paradiddle, or left hand paradiddle. A 5 is what I'm calling a paradiddle tap. Paradiddle tap. Paradiddle tap. Left hand. And then a 6 is a paradiddle diddle. Paradiddle diddle, or left hand paradiddle diddle. Now in this particular example we don't have a 6, but we do have a 4, a 5 and a 3. So with my single stroke sticking, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Now the alternative sticking will be paradiddle, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Now onto my left hand, right, left, left, right, right. that's the 3. The 5 is a paradiddle tap, paradiddle tap, still on my left hand. 1, 2, 3, 1. And thank the Lord, I'll get back to my right hand. So I'm going paradiddle paradiddle, left, right, right, paradiddle tap, left, right, right, left, and start again. Now, the first thing that strikes me is that the way I'm accessing the accents has completely changed. Instead of only 2 left-hand accents, I now have only 1 right-hand accent. Right, left, 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 right, left, 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 right. So there's a lot of left-hand activity going on there. If I then go to the drums and apply the 3 templates, accent on snare, toms now. Quite interesting now, quite a challenge now. Lots of left hand crashes. Let's get the hi-hat going. 1, 2, 3, 4. Very interesting. Now, there's another template to be applied, which is what I call the groove templates. So templates 1, 2, 3 are snare, tom, cymbals. Templates 4, 5, 6 are this position, and this position. Now the idea is that you play your sticking pattern so, and the bass drum takes up any right hand accents. Any left hand accents just get played on the snare. So I'm going paradiddle, left, right, right, paradiddle, tap, left, right, right. So the bass drum will go there, and that's the only one that's going to happen. So we go. Now that's just a rule to get started. Of course, you can add bass drum notes as you wish. But for the moment, let's move out to this one. So this is the template 5. And you'll have heard that I've spotted an extra bass drum that I can throw in. Now, if I go to here, the idea is that any left-hand accents drop onto the snare. So we'd get... Okay, I'm missing a couple, you get the idea. I'm thinking of other bass drum notes I can put in here. So I might go... That sounds quite good too. And then finally is to split the hands and actually start leaning on one side or leaning on the other. So if I play this with a complete split of hands and lean on my right hand side, getting that bell ring up. What's happening on my left side? suddenly we're in a completely different place than we were at the beginning. At the beginning we just had some sixteenths and some subdivisions, but now we've actually got some quite cool rhythms coming out. Another thing that I can demonstrate is, will this work in a musical practice context? So if I hook up my iPad, more volume out. So I'm thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are my subdivisions. So I'm saying now I know I've sort of double timed that, but I'm just giving you an idea. So if I can record that, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll just set it to 4 bars. And then I have try soloing around that, just trying to keep the phrase going. The idea being, the purpose of the clinic is that we started with just some notes, just some subdivisions, a very simple rhythm, and we took it up and we applied some kit templates. We then applied some rudiments without knowing we were going to do it. We actually applied some rolls, but the rudiments jumped out. We ended up playing 5-stroke, 7-stroke and 9-stroke rolls, 6-stroke rolls around the kit. We then turned it into a groove. We changed the sticking so that we brought in some paradiddle ideas. And then we ended up with almost a Latin cascara-esque sort of pattern, but a sort of different sticking pattern where you can introduce the concept of leaning to one side and leaning on the other. Not so much accenting as a right hand lean and a left hand lean. And of course, I mentioned other rudiments. You can bring flams into this. So if you flam the accents, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. That introduces other right hand and left hand sticking patterns. split your hands, you'll get different kinds of patterns. And that's the idea of this clinic, which I believe I can demonstrate within the time frame. There may even be time for some related questions. Can you be used with double bass drum, linear fills? The answer is yes, it can, but one would just have to see how the time run. Thank you for your patience, and I hope you'll consider this video application.